Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio, as abbreviated as it will probably be. Want to apologize. Wednesday was just a no-go. The dental appointment was not pleasant and still bothering me. I went back today to try to get some of this worked out, but the two that he worked on, my God, it's just totally cold sensitive and it hurts. And I wouldn't be surprised if I end up with a root canal over this whole thing. And I am not quite up to par, but I did not want to let the rest of the week go by without at least saying something. Just not sure what I'm going to say. The main thing that I can get at is, if this is March Madness, there's not a whole lot of madness, in my opinion. These games are not stimulating. That would be, I guess, the nicest way of putting it. I take a look at the scores of these games. I mean, look at today's games. And I recognize that a 16 has never beaten a 1, but sometimes the games are actually fun to watch, not like UNC beating Texas Southern 93-56. You know? Who cares about Michigan and Oklahoma State? Michigan was the favorite going in, and they won by a point. Good game. Neither team's going to win the championship. Well, we know Oklahoma State isn't. Baylor won. They easily handled the 14 seed. Iona, the number 14 seed, got crushed by Oregon. Louisville had an easy time with Jacksonville State, 15-point winners. If you want an upset, USC over SMU, well, I wouldn't call that a real upset. Notre Dame beat Princeton by 2 points. Good game, but the expected outcome. All of these games have been the expected outcome. And it's kind of boring. I like watching the round of, the play-in rounds, so I can see who the little schools are. And I like to watch the, 64 and 32, because you get to see some of the smaller schools, but none of them are winning. All you have, is Northwestern, who they're trying to make into a darling team, and they're going to get their ass thwacked against Gonzaga when they play them. I don't know. I'm just not impressed. I wanted to see the kid who led the nation in scoring from South Dakota State. He sucks. Guy named Dom. Guy was awful. He was so easily stopped. And he leads, and then they said during the broadcast, he had a season high 51 against Fort Wayne. Is there even a college in Fort Wayne? I don't know. Not impressed. Not impressed at all. I always try to tune in to games that might have players, Mount St. Mary's, well, they won their play-in game, but they couldn't hold it together, and they lost by 20. They had that little 5'5" kid. But, nobody thought that Mount St. Mary's would do anything in the second round anyway. So that's fair enough. But because they weren't that good of a team during the course of the year. But everyone's looking for the darling, the underdog. It's just not happening. And it's like everything else. It's just become so corporatized that there's not even a damn feel-good story emanating from this thing. It's just more, it shouldn't be the road to the Final Four. It should be the road to the NBA, These players will be here today, gone tomorrow, coming soon to the D-League near you. It's pretty bad when you can look at the moment that will be remembered so far. Think of all the moments Christian Leitner's turnaround at the buzzer. What was it his name? Drew, Evansville kid who went the length of the floor and Danny Ainge him. No, he hit a long bomb. That's what he did. He hit a long bomb at the buzzer for Evansville many years ago. I can think of so many teams from my memory who were like really entertaining teams. Remember Popeye Jones? He either went to Eastern or Western Kentucky, floppy-eared, ugly, funny-looking guy who had a brief stay in the NBA, but was a really good college player. Remember Wally Zerbiak at Miami of Ohio? There's been some really good players from smaller schools, and some of the teams, of course, Cleveland State, you never forget their run. And, Florida Gulf Coast is out already. They played a competitive game, having lost 86-80 to Florida. But, everyone remembers their Final 16 run. And there's none of that. So what is the pivotal moment so far in March Madness? The Northwestern Vanderbilt game, but not because of Northwestern, but because that idiot kid at Vanderbilt who committed a foul because he didn't know what the fucking score was. I mean, inexplicable foul pretty well describes it. If you didn't see the game, you have to have read about it. I mean, it's a moment of shame. And they're trying to say it wasn't as bad as what Chris Webber did. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I could understand somebody not realizing they didn't have a timeout left easier than a guy whose team had just taken the lead in a game and didn't realize that his team was ahead. This I can't figure out. If you didn't see the game, Matthew Fisher Davis, he just grabbed Bryant McIntosh of the Northwestern Wildcats on purpose, sending McIntosh to the free throw line for the go-ahead points with 15 seconds left in the game. It just doesn't seem possible. You're down 65-64. Your guy hits a driving layup to put you up 66-65. You want to talk about a reversal of fortune? That has to be about the fastest thing from, what are they called? The thrill of victory to the agony of defeat. All in the blink of an eye. You come back from behind, you take the lead, and the asshole grabs the other team at the half-court line, commits an intentional foul when his team is ahead. Of course, you knew that when Vanderbilt got the ball back, they were going to clank the three, the game would be over, and bye-bye. I don't know. That's what I remember. And here's what Fisher Davis said. I actually thought we were down one. It's funny. You have a crowd watching the game, cheering. You have a big fucking scoreboard in your face. Now, I'd understand Chris Webber, not that I defend Chris Webber on a regular basis, but not that he was the smartest player I've ever seen play, but he was a freshman, a team full of freshmen, an overhyped team of freshmen. But there's a little thing on the scoreboard that says how many timeouts you have left, and, I could understand in the moment, maybe you'd forget. But the score is the biggest thing on the scoreboard. And I mean, you have the ball and you've been fighting to get back into the game and you take the lead. How could you not know that? It just seems unbelievable. But that might explain why Vanderbilt was only 19-16 this season. They rallied from 15 points down only to have this guy commit that foul. Unreal. And they went back to the Chris Webber timeout, or remember Fred Brown, Georgetown, when he threw the pass to James Worthy of North Carolina in the final. But, I don't even look at it that one is that bad, because he saw something out of the corner of his eye. I don't understand not knowing what the score is. And I honestly, of course, Northwestern's coach, Chris Collins, was gracious. An honest mistake. You feel bad for players. Kid played tremendous today. I was certainly surprised. 18 seconds left. The Commodores went up by 1. 3 seconds later, it was over for them. Really strange. When he grabbed me, I thought we were down 1, and I'm thinking maybe I made the mistake. That's what McIntosh said, the guy from Northwestern. But, I'd have banked on the Northwestern guy over the Vanderbilt guy in this set of circumstances based on the two schools. I know Vanderbilt's a good school. They used to try to call Vanderbilt the Harvard of the South, but that's what they called Duke too. But Harvard is in the North. Vanderbilt is the Vanderbilts of the South. School is in Tennessee, for God's sakes. We mustn't forget that. I guess what it boils down to is you're so mystified. The guy who ended up being fouled thought, holy shit, maybe I don't know what the score is. It's really a mystifying thing. At any rate, that's March Madness. And no, I'm really not watching like I have in the past because you can only watch one game at a time and you can kind of follow the scores. And I like to see, okay, what's going on at the half, If the game is still competitive at halftime, I'm going to have some interest in watching the game. But you see, it was like the South Dakota State game. I mean, Gonzaga didn't really show up in the first half of the game, so it was artificially close. But when I saw how bad South Dakota State's best player was and the leading scorer in college basketball, it just made me realize that Jimmer Fredette sucks too. I guess it's easy to be some slow white guy in South Dakota and lead the NCAA in scoring in basketball when you're playing Fort Wayne College. It's unbelievable when you look at the majors, the programs who sometimes, and Jim Boeheim was always famous for this. He was the one who put Lemoyne College on the map. Jim Boeheim. Biggest fucking pussy I've ever seen in my life and the biggest whiner I've ever seen in my life. Guy would play the easiest non-conference schedule that he could dredge up to run up early wins so that he would end up with a better chance of getting into the NCAA tournament. And Lemoyne College was one of them. I don't even know what Lemoyne College is. I still don't know. But it was like the one time Chaminade in Hawaii actually won. And I forget who it was they beat. Did they beat Georgetown? They beat some in a holiday tournament. So everybody for like one season knew Chaminade in Hawaii. But these little schools don't make names for themselves except by how much they get beaten by. But can you imagine, as bad as it is for like Lemoyne College to have to make a living by letting Syracuse and Jim Boeheim beat the shit out of them? Imagine if you're a minor program like Fort Wayne College. Imagine if you have to be South Dakota State's bitch. That is like unreal to me. It's like basketball limbo. How low can you go? Yeah, we were South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits bitch. How can you be the bitch of a team that calls themselves Jackrabbits? But I guess there is a never-ending spiral of low when it comes to college basketball. There are some programs that are just so terrible. And then there are others who are like thoroughly terrible. Hi to Wiley, hi to Daktar. So, not impressed. Now, on the other hand, I did watch the Cavaliers game. Yesterday, I had to record the game, so I was about an hour late getting to it because Had a very good friend come here yesterday who spent the evening with us and helped take my two trikes up to South Carolina. And so we were loading up the trikes, and I was holding the side of my this. And by the time we got back from dinner, I can only eat soft food, so I'm getting really tired of macaroni and cheese. You know, you can only take, what protein do you want in your macaroni and cheese? Just don't have the neighbor fucking jerk off in it, and I'm fine. Just some other protein form than that, please. You get sick of it real quick. So I ended up going to a Mexican restaurant here called the Acapulco Tropical Gardens because I wanted to take this guy there who was helping me with the bikes. In South Carolina, there was a restaurant called Sasha's, which is a Colombian restaurant that has a dish that we have named the Mountain of Meat. Bandeja paisa is the name of the dish, and it's just more fucking meat than you can throw at a human being. It's cholesterol on a plate. Well, the Acapulco Tropical Gardens has something called fajita mix, and it's shrimp and chicken and beef and pork, and it's piled high on a fucking plate this high. I'm not making this up. With a stack of tortillas that thick. The guy, I said, yeah, order the fajita mix. And of course, I knew how huge it was. And he goes, yeah, get me one of those and get me two, what do we get some chips, tortilla chips and guacamole. And what do you got? And 2 tamales. Well, when the food all came out, he looked at me and his eyes bulged out of his head. And he said, why in the hell did you let me order the tamales? And I said, hey, while you were going retard, you might as well go full bore retard. I know it's not politically correct, but yeah, I mean, you would think that he would have looked around and seen the food that surrounded him, but no, he was just tunnel visioned. He ended up with so much food, he brought a bunch of food back on the road with him when he left to bring the bikes up today and got there safely and had lunch at the same time. So I was an hour late. I had soup. It's like the 90-year-old guy was celebrating his 90th birthday. They bring the big cake out, and a really sexy young girl in a bikini jumps out of the cake right onto the table next to the birthday boy, 90-year-old guy. And she says to him, would you like some super sex? And he says, yeah, I'll take the soup. That's how I felt. I'm sitting in this den of iniquity of cholesterol, and I'm eating soup. So by the time I got to the game, of course, I realized that Kevin Love was starting, and it's like, all right, this ought to be interesting to watch because the Utah Jazz are really about like watching paint dry. If you don't mind watching Gordon Hayward make shots with like 1/2 of a second left on the 24-second clock, it's no different than watching the old Indiana Pacers, And I'm convinced that Indiana and Utah, they're the same fucking place anyway, because it's just a bunch of white people who don't appreciate the way basketball is supposed to be played. They play it the same way in both states. Very white, bright, and polite. So who is it? You have Quinn Snyder, who is the coach, and then you had Vogel, who is the coach of Indiana. They're basically the same guy, too. We play defense. We slow it down. We run the shot clock down. We get a good shot, and we frustrate our opponents. And we never win in the playoffs, by the way, because that kind of game doesn't work when the other team is allowed to play more aggressive defense. Well, the Cavaliers got up early. We're up by 14, and I thought we were rolling, and then we got lulled into the tortoise game. And I've seen it so many damn times against Indiana. Matter of fact, the losing streak that the Cavaliers have had in Indiana, I mean, it's really annoying, really seriously annoying watching that kind of basketball. And they tortoised their way back in the game, and then they got the lead, right? And you realize, hey, Kevin Love did fine considering, except for the air ball from three. He did fine for a guy who hasn't played in a long time. But Kyrie walks over to LeBron in the fourth quarter and says, I can't go anymore. My knee is stiffened up. LeBron says, don't worry, I got it. And, of course, LeBron is basketball god, and he proceeds to score 17 points in the fourth and lead the Cavaliers to victory. Shumpert grabbed his shoulder again. I know what they're saying. I think it's because he was shooting so much. I mean, when did that start? You know, the problem with Iman Shumpert is I thought he understood what his role was in this team, but he doesn't. Now he'll pull up 1-on-2, 1-on-3 and shoot a three. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Why? He's not a good shooter. He's never been a good shooter. His marketability was at his all-time high when he had his best half season of shooting from behind the arc, and teams still didn't want him. Whatever happened to the Iman Shumpert who was a defensive leader? And how sad is it that the Cavaliers are saying, oh, God, thank God J.R. Smith's back for his defense? You remember these two guys played on the same team. They both came from the New York Knicks. And as I recall, it was J.R. Smith who was the lazy slug who threw up bad threes. It was Iman Shumpert, always injured, but who played the hard-nosed defense. What in the hell happened with role reversal here? Is it like one of those goofy movies where the two people, they got their body into some kind of a machine, they exchanged characters? Watching Shumpert just chuck the ball up from behind the arc repeatedly made me nauseous, and it probably threw his own shoulder out. Meanwhile, the game is going at a tortoise pace, and the Utah Jazz, every time the Cavaliers get up a little bit, Utah tortoises their way back in the game because the Cavaliers miss wide open threes. Channing Frye was horrible. There were at least 4 backbreakers throughout the game that Channing Frye clanked. And it's like, you know, Channing Frye can't play defense against anybody, let alone Rudy Gobert. Why is it that Rudy Gobert, I always think of the James Bond girl, Holly Golightly. Holly Golightly, Rudy Gobert. I don't know. Rudy Gobert just stand by the basket and just put the ball back in. Channing Frye was glued to the floor, like super glued to the floor, and just stare at him. It's like, ah, fuck. And Rudy Gobert has a 7'9" wingspan. And you say, wow. But he's a tall guy. Which makes me realize that Larry Sanders has a 7'7" wingspan. Did you know that? But he's not nearly as tall as Rudy Gobert. After the game, Quinn Snyder was not necessarily complimentary of Gobert, saying he's still missing opportunities. Rather than taking shots from inside, he should be finding men open in the corner for threes. Whatever you say, white coach, God forbid you should be 7 feet plus tall and pass up an easy dunk against Channing Frye for an if-come-maybe three from a team that doesn't shoot well from behind the arc. But, you know, it's watching Utah is like watching Coach Norman Dale's team in Hoosiers. Really. How many times are you going to pass? 5. 5 times. Right? That's what it's like. Slow. Then it comes down to the end of the game, and J.R. Smith hits the backbreaker that takes the Cavs up by 6 at the end of the game. The big three that he drains. Thank God Shumpert was already injured, and Shumpert didn't get to take it. But in the interim time, LeBron was just driving around everybody. And the funniest part of this whole thing is that with a real makeshift lineup on the floor, I don't know. I mean, we didn't have a lot of our guys. But for some reason, Rudy Gobert was just standing with Channing Frye. Channing Frye couldn't hit the broadside of a barn last night, but he was going out to cover him, and the Red Sea parted. LeBron James just kept driving down the lane, and there was no rim protection to stop him. I kept looking at going, where's Gobert? And he's standing in a corner with Channing Frye doing a do-si-do. I have no idea. So LeBron finally goes in, then he kicks it out over, and that's wide open three for JR, who buries the big shot. And basically, JR is saying, no, he's not back in rhythm yet. Well, he hasn't been in rhythm all year. Let's be honest about that. JR seems to feel that he's close to his old self shooting the basketball. Yeah, but his legs aren't there yet. He worked harder last night, and he's going to continue to work harder to get himself in shape. The same thing with Kevin Love. You can see Kevin Love got 9 rebounds and 10 points, but you saw him short arm a couple of threes, and you also saw some of the timing, rebounds to kind of hit him in the chest, that kind of thing. He just wasn't quite up to speed. And that's 4 weeks and 2 days. And you look at J.R. Smith, and that's, whatever it was, 6.5 weeks. Imagine Larry Sanders, 2+ years. It takes a long time to get up to speed, folks. The NBA is a blur speed-wise. And when you fall, it's like starting the season all over again. J.R. Smith said, you want me to say that I'm back all the way, but then I'll turn around and shoot 1 for 7 the next game. J.R. said, I missed more than I made today, so I can't say I'm back in rhythm. Well, you generally, according to your career stats, J.R., you miss more than you make. I'm not going to complain. The 12 points that he gave us, we needed badly. He was 4 of 10 from the field, but he was 4 of 8 from 3. And that 50% from beyond the arc is necessary. When you're playing a team like Utah, you've got to get threes. Because if you can put up threes against them, it's not like they have anybody. I mean, George Hill made one. I don't even think they had very many guys. They had that Ingles guy who made a couple, who was slow, and why he was getting them off, I'm not 100% sure. But they don't really have dead-eye shooters from behind the arc. Any threes. That's how the Cavs got up early in the beginning of the game. But once it turns into the slowpoke fest, it gets dull very quickly. But it was nice to have JR contribute. Now, as far as the injuries are concerned, they're saying it's not all that much to worry about. They're all day-to-day. Nobody seems to know exactly what happened to Shumpert, except it looked like it happened in the lane, that he and Gobert kind of got locked up, and something happened to his, not quite Kelly Olynyk like locked up, but got locked up. As far as Kyrie is concerned, his knee always hurts him. I mean, it's kind of like the cab fare thing, click, 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 ting, click, click, click. Ting! When Kyrie hits a certain mileage, his knee goes ding. And then it's time to sit Kyrie for a couple of games. But the thing that's most interesting about this, and it's really basically how I'm going to finish the program, because I don't have all that much really to say, is that you look at who plays, who's dispensable, and who's indispensable. Well, LeBron is indispensable. Had LeBron gone up to Kyrie and said, man, my knee's stiff, I can't play the fourth quarter, do you think Kyrie would have led the Cavaliers to a win? And I'll tell you what the deal is with that. If you put LeBron on the floor with Darren Williams and they run the high pick and screen, or pick and roll, excuse me, and LeBron comes thundering down the lane, that's one way, or he can beat you off the dribble and get into the lane and get into the paint. The thing with LeBron, when he's coming down the lane, there's two LeBrons. There's the LeBron, the facilitator, and then there's LeBron, the scorer. And in the fourth quarter, when Kyrie said, I'm done for the night, LeBron took it upon himself to be LeBron, the scorer. But there's always that LeBron, the facilitator, which is how the final three by J.R. Smith got shot, is because LeBron found him open on the wing. Kyrie is not that way. Kyrie, and I know, maybe what I'm saying is heretical, SAT word. He hit the game-winning shot in Game 7. You're not going to complain about Kyrie Irving, are you? And I'm just going to say what separates the greatest player of all time, LeBron James, from Kyrie Irving is that, yes, they can make big shots, but can they really make people around them look better? And Kyrie, if he comes barreling down the lane, he's going to try a funky, spinning, English-laden finish at the rim. He's going to try to switch it over to his left hand and shoot it over Rudy Gobert, or whatever. But he doesn't have the body strength to be able to drive it to the hole that way and force foul contact, even though he's a 90% free throw shooter. He's not that big a man. And he doesn't think facilitator first. So when the pressure is on Kyrie Irving to deliver in the fourth quarter, he does it by shooting the basketball almost exclusively, not passing the basketball. LeBron, on the other hand, can combine the two. And if you surround him with enough good shooters and without Korver playing and with JR still leaden-legged and Kevin Love the same, LeBron can go to the hole and he can score 17 points in the fourth quarter. Well, Kyrie can too, but he's not going to make the big pass that's going to get one of those other guys open. He's not thinking penetrate and kick. He's thinking penetrate and finish. We lost how many games without Kevin Love because we lose, the double-double action. We lose the rebound specifically. We were getting out-rebounded by teams. And it was ugly. But we were only, I think, if I'm correct, like 7-7 or 8-7 without Kevin Love in the 15 games, or was it something, or 7-6 in the 13 games? I think that's right. 7-6 in the 13 games that Kevin Love didn't play. Yet it's Kevin Love who's questioned more than anybody. I don't know if he really should be considered part of a big three. It's really LeBron and Kyrie. And I'm saying, we just pulled out a game against one of the best teams in the West. Don't like the way they play, but their record suggests they're one of the best teams in the West. We did it without Kyrie on the floor at the pivotal moments of the fourth quarter. We also did it without Kevin Love on the floor. What was it? LeBron and Darren Williams, Channing Frye. Help me here. Help me. Who are the other two guys on the floor? Because it wasn't Derek Williams because he was hurt. It wasn't Shump, he was out. It wasn't Kyrie, he was out. Maybe Tristan was out there. I don't know. But it was nothing. It was LeBron and whoever else. We win. You put that lineup on the floor with Kyrie, not going to happen. Not going to happen. So the next time you become enamored with the final shot in Game 7, you should be a pleasant memory, but please don't say that Kyrie Irving is the next great thing, because honestly, Kyrie Irving is a really good scoring guard. So was Allen Iverson. didn't make him the best teammate of all time, and it certainly didn't make players around him much better. Fascinating to watch his ability to finish. Same thing. I mean, some of the moves that Kyrie makes were just absolutely fantastic. But the funny part of it is that LeBron on the floor with Deron Williams, how much do we lose? And what we lose from the scoring guard perspective of the scenario, or the point guard perspective, what we lose with Kyrie not on the floor, we gain with Deron Williams being able to find people and LeBron be able to find people. You can surround those two men who are really good passers with three long-range sharpshooters, which will eventually kind of morph into, the J.R. Smith, Kyle Korver, then you got Channing Frye. You got a bunch of people who can shoot threes. Got Kevin Love who can shoot threes. With Kyrie, it's kind of the LeBron Kyrie show in the fourth quarter. But once you put Deron Williams into the mix, anybody could get the ball. Even Deron Williams might take a shot every now and then. But it becomes more about facilitation than it does about me and scoring points individually, one-on-one. Another thing that really, with Kyrie, the more amazing Kyrie is, the more the ball is sticking in his hands. And that is the other thing that makes it difficult, folks, because that's what happened to Cleveland last night when they started falling behind. The ball stopped moving. And, everyone wants to see the next great move that Kyrie makes. And it is great when he whirls and wheels and deals and then takes the fade away from the baseline. But when only one or two people touch the ball in a possession against, a tortoise ball team, that's what they want. Take an off-balance shot, fall down after you shoot it. They have an automatic 5-on-4 advantage. They get the rebound. They push the ball down the floor as fast as they can, which isn't very fast. But that's how a guy like Joe Ingles finds an open shot, because Kyrie is still rolling on the floor like a Pentecostal after trying an off-balance jump shot. When the ball sticks, the Cavaliers lose. And the good news from yesterday is that Utah was playing a back-to-back. And it didn't get really broadcast that much. That's what was going on. But that's what was going on. Their tortoise pace allows them to play road back-to-back like they did pretty well. But I think at the end of the game, they just kind of finally ran out of gas. I think that's one of the reasons. And Quinn Snyder was not using that as an excuse. But I think that's one of the reasons why LeBron James was so easily getting to the basket. I think that fatigue was setting in because of the back-to-back. But you're not going to see the Cavaliers win very many games where they only score 91 points. But in this instance, I think, again, the fatigue is what starts the whole process. And it's why, I want to say that Utah shot like 41% for the game. And in the second half, it was in the 30s because, as the game progresses, the legs get weaker and the shots get shorter. And by the end of the game, you're playing on the road. You can't allow the home team to get a little bit of momentum. And the Cavaliers were able to kind of seize the moment, carpe diem, and win the game. All right. Well, I don't know that there's really much else that I have to say, because that's what's happening in the world of sports. I'm not really yet paying attention to the NFL. The Browns made their moves, and I'm not really interested in the quarterback discussions. I don't want to talk about Mitch Trubisky. I don't really want to have to compare him to Deshaun Watson, and I'm tired on my Twitter line that, the same people who want Deshaun Johnson were the people who wanted RG3, and the guys who want Mitch Trubisky are the same guys who wanted Charlie Fry. I mean, can we just turn the page and just get some good ball players that are going to contribute instead of taking a long shot on a guy like Trubisky? I mean, come on. You don't really want to do that, do you? Mitch Trubisky. You say the name, Say the name Derek Carr. Derek Carr sounds like an NFL quarterback, right? I know. Andrew Luck sounded like an NFL quarterback. Mitch Trubisky just sounds like a guy who's going to end up hoisting a few beers at Archie Bunker's place when his career's over 3 years in. Not buying into the Trubisky bandwagon. Well, thanks a lot for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. I'm going to nurse my tooth, and hopefully I'm going to go back to the dentist beginning of the week and get this bite worked on a little bit. And I'm hoping that I can get some of this discomfort out of my mouth. Thank you so much for tuning in. Back again, I hope, on Monday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.